There was a quiet inevitability to the way Johan Cruyff approached football, a certainty that this game, seemingly bound by chance and unpredictability, could be brought under control by those who truly understood its essence. Cruyff's understanding was rooted not in coaching manuals or conventional wisdom, but in something far more intuitive, an ability to see football as a fluid, ever-evolving landscape. To him, players weren't confined to rigid roles or static positions. Instead, they were dynamic components of a collective effort, each capable of influencing the game in ways that traditional systems failed to imagine. His vision was shaped by those he admired most, a select group of players who embodied the characteristics that he believed defined football at its highest level. The first and most revered among them was Alfredo Di Stefano, a player Cruyff did not merely respect, but idolized. He was the only one I ever asked for an autograph, Cruyff admitted, a rare gesture from a man who typically distanced himself from idol worship. But with Di Stefano, it was different. He wasn't just another great player. He represented everything Cruyff wanted football to be. Di Stefano's brilliance wasn't limited to a specific role or function. He was everywhere, defending, creating, scoring, and yet his influence on the game was never chaotic. He could do everything, Cruyff said, and he made it all look simple. At Real Madrid, Di Stefano was the engine that powered one of the most dominant teams in history. But to Cruyff, his significance went beyond trophies and accolades. Di Stefano's true genius lay in his understanding of space, movement, and timing, the very principles that would later form the backbone of Cruyff's total football philosophy. Watching him, Cruyff saw that the game wasn't about individual moments of brilliance, but about the collective manipulation of space. Di Stefano didn't just play football, he orchestrated it, dictating the tempo and rhythm like a conductor leading an orchestra. Their relationship, though built on admiration, also had a personal dimension. When Cruyff won his first Ballon d'Or in 1971, Di Stefano was there, offering words of encouragement that stayed with Cruyff long after the ceremony ended. "He treated me warmly," Cruyff recalled, a simple statement that carried deeper meaning for a man who rarely allowed emotion to influence his public persona. Di Stefano's approval mattered because it came from someone who understood what it meant to be more than just a player, to be a leader, a thinker, and an innovator. But Di Stefano wasn't the only figure who shaped Cruyff's outlook. Franz Beckenbauer, the German defender known as Der Kaiser, was another player who earned Cruyff's unreserved admiration. Where Di Stefano was all-encompassing in his approach, Beckenbauer was surgical, a master of efficiency and precision. Beckenbauer understood the game in a way few others did, Cruyff once said. And it was this understanding that earned him a place in Cruyff's all-time greatest 11. Beckenbauer's role as a libero, a defender who could step into midfield and influence the game offensively, was a perfect fit for Cruyff's vision of football. In the traditional sense, defenders were expected to stay back, break up attacks, and play simple passes. But Beckenbauer wasn't a traditionalist. He saw opportunities where others saw risks, and he had the technical ability and tactical awareness to exploit them. Cruyff admired this willingness to defy convention, to see football as a game of possibilities rather than limitations. He wasn't just a defender, he was a thinker, Cruyff remarked, emphasizing the intellectual dimension of Beckenbauer's play. This intellectual approach was central to Cruyff's concept of total football, a system that demanded players be comfortable in multiple roles and capable of adapting to the flow of the game. Beckenbauer's ability to seamlessly transition between defense and attack made him an ideal fit for this philosophy. He could drop deep to intercept a pass, then carry the ball forward with elegance and purpose, creating numerical advantages in midfield and unsettling opposition defenses. To Cruyff, this wasn't just good football, it was the very definition of how the game should be played. But what set Beckenbauer apart wasn't just his versatility or technical skill, it was his composure under pressure. He played with an air of authority, as if he always knew what was about to happen, and had already prepared his response. Cruyff recognized this quality because he possessed it himself. The best players, in his view, weren't necessarily the fastest or the strongest. They were the ones who could anticipate and adapt. Beckenbauer's ability to read the game and make split-second decisions made him a natural leader. and Cruyff believed that leadership on the pitch was just as important as individual skill. If Di Stefano and Beckenbauer represented the ideals of versatility and tactical intelligence, then Fas Wilkes embodied the creative flair that Cruyff believed was essential to football's artistic side. Wilkes, a Dutch forward who played in the 1940s and 1950s, wasn't as globally celebrated as the others, but his influence on Dutch football, and on Cruyff specifically, was profound. "Wilkes showed me that football could be beautiful," Cruyff said, highlighting the role of individual expression within the team structure. Wilkes was a dribbler, a player who thrived on taking defenders on and creating something out of nothing. His style was spontaneous, almost rebellious, and it resonated with the young Cruyff, who would later incorporate that same sense of freedom into his own game. But Wilkes wasn't just about showmanship, he had an acute understanding of when and where to deploy his skills for maximum effect. Cruyff learned from Wilkes that creativity, when harnessed properly, could be a weapon, not in the sense of flashy tricks, but as a means of breaking down defences and opening up spaces for teammates. That balance between creativity and discipline was something Cruyff carried into his managerial career, and no player exemplified it better than Pep Guardiola. "Pep understood what I wanted," Cruyff said, referring to his time managing the young midfielder at Barcelona. Guardiola wasn't the most physically gifted player on the team, but he was the most cerebral, a player who could process the game in real time and adjust accordingly. Cruyff saw in him the perfect embodiment of his philosophy, a player who didn't just follow instructions but understood the reasoning behind them. Guardiola's role at Barcelona was to control the tempo of the game, dictating when to speed it up and when to slow it down. He did this not through flashy passes or highlight reel moments, but through an almost imperceptible mastery of positioning and movement. He was always thinking, Cruyff noted, a trait that would later define Guardiola's success as a manager. When Guardiola transitioned from player to coach, he didn't just replicate Cruyff's tactics, he refined them, taking the principles of total football and adapting them to the modern game. At Barcelona, Guardiola's teams played with the same fluidity and precision that Cruyff had championed, but with an added emphasis on positional play and ball retention. His success wasn't just a tribute to Cruyff's influence, it was a testament to the enduring relevance of his ideas. Guardiola's teams at Bayern Munich and Manchester City continued this legacy, demonstrating that the principles Cruyff had laid down decades earlier were not bound by time or geography. Through Guardiola, Beckenbauer, Di Stefano and Wilkes, Cruyff's vision of football came to life. But it wasn't just their individual brilliance that earned them his admiration. It was the way they understood the game as a collective effort. Each of them, in their own way, embodied the idea that football was about more than just scoring goals or winning matches. It was about creating something that could be admired for its elegance, precision and creativity. Cruyff's legacy, then, isn't just about what he achieved as a player or manager, it's about the ideas he left behind and the players who helped shape them. Di Stefano taught him the value of versatility. Beckenbauer showed him the importance of tactical intelligence. Wilkes inspired him to embrace creativity. And Guardiola proved that those ideas could be carried forward into the future. Together they formed a blueprint for the modern game, one that continues to influence players and managers long after Cruyff's final whistle. In their movement, their vision, and their understanding, they reflected not just the game Johan Cruyff loved, but the game he believed it could become.